Good morning, and welcome to Karma Stories. Wishing you a day full of peace, truth, and just enough karma to keep things interesting. Stay with us for real tales where justice always finds its way. They called it the greenest community in Oregon. Solar panels on every roof, organic gardens in every yard. Rules so strict you'd think Mother Nature herself wrote the bylaws. But when Ethan Blake moved in, he didn't just find eco-conscious neighbors and compost bins. He found a system built on control, profit, and polished lies. Behind the buzzwords and recycled paper newsletters was a HOA president with a secret stake in every overpriced Greene upgrade they forced on residents. And when Ethan tried to speak out, they called him the threat. They fined him. They silenced him. They branded him the enemy of sustainability. What would you do if your community used environmentalism as a weapon? If going green was just another excuse for corruption? Tell me what you think in the comments. Let's begin the story. The brochure for Evergreen Heights practically dripped chlorophyll. Oregon's premier eco-community. It cooed, showcasing solar panels gleaming like badges of honor and residents smiling beatifically over organic vegetable patches. As Ethan Blake, a man whose online avatar, Eco-Ethan, had poked more than a few hornet nests in the world of corporate greenwashing. It sounded like a place he could almost tolerate, maybe even call home. The ink was barely dry on his mortgage, a document thicker than a sequoia. When the welcome packet addendum arrived, it was less a welcome, more a ransom note. Mandatory ecological enhancements, it declared, with a price tag that made his sustainably sourced coffee curdle in his stomach. $20, $7.22. For what? A suite of products from a company called Verdant Solutions. Solar panels non-negotiable. Pre-selected brand. Artisan organic fertilizer, apparently. Dirt now came with a pedigree. And a water filtration system that promised to turn Oregon's already pristine tap water into something resembling the tears of a forest nymph. 20 grand. Ethan muttered to his laptop camera later, already drafting a blog post in his head. For enhancements I didn't ask for and could source myself for half the price. And probably greener too. Welcome to the neighborhood, sucker. His first attempt at adulting in Evergreen Heights was to propose his own, meticulously researched, and significantly cheaper eco-upgrades. He had a line on locally made solar panels with a better efficiency rating and a composting system that would make Verdant's bagged fertilizer look like powdered hypocrisy. The HOA board meeting felt less like a community gathering and more like an audience with a minor deity. And the deity, it turned out, was Sierra Greene. Sierra, with her flawless skin, perpetually serene smile, and an Instagram following that dwarfed the population of most small countries. She was the face of Evergreen Heights, a living, breathing testament to sustainable chic. Her every utterance about mindful consumption and holistic living was lapped up by the assembled residents, who nodded with the fervent devotion of disciples. Mr. Blake, Sierra began, her voice smooth as polished riverstone. We appreciate your enthusiasm. A slight, almost imperceptible tightening around her eyes. However, Evergreen Heights operates on a set of carefully curated community standards. Our partnership with Verdant Solutions ensures uniformity and guarantees the ecological integrity of our brand. Ethan echoed, an eyebrow arching. I thought we were building a community, not a lifestyle franchise. My proposed solar panels are objectively better and less expensive. The fertilizer. Verdant Solutions is our exclusive provider. A man with a comb-over and a nameplate reading Gary. Treasurer interjected, puffing his chest slightly. It's in the covenants. Page 73. Subsection D. Paragraph 4. Sierra offered a placid smile. It's about the collective. Ethan, ensuring every home contributes to our shared eco-vision in a consistent manner. A vision that costs $20,000 up front. Non-negotiable. From a single supplier, Ethan pressed, feeling the familiar itch of a fight brewing. Doesn't sound very sustainable for the average person's finances. Or very green to ship everything from one national supplier when local. More eco-friendly options exist. The smiles around the room didn't waver, but they didn't reach anyone's eyes. It was like arguing with a beautifully designed, incredibly expensive wall. His proposals were dismissed with a gentle, Unyielding condescension one might use on a toddler demanding ice cream for dinner. Walking back to his still half-unpacked house, Ethan felt a familiar prickle of defiance. This wasn't just about money, it was about principle, and the glossy eco-certifications Verdant Solutions slapped on their products. His initial online searches suggested they were as transparent as a mud puddle. Prices were easily double, sometimes triple. What comparable, often superior. Items cost on the open market. Someone was getting rich, and it probably wasn't Mother Earth. A few days later, a harried-looking woman named Maria, juggling a reusable grocery bag and a visibly uncomfortable toddler, stopped him by the community mailbox. "You're Ethan, right? The new guy who asked about the Verdant contract." Her son, little Leo, was scratching furiously at his arms, which were dotted with angry red welts. "It's this fertilizer." Maria sighed, her voice tight with frustration. "The one from Verdant. Every time they treat the common lawns. Or I use the approved stuff on my garden." Leo breaks out. "I showed them the doctor's note. Allergy. They just said, 'Let me guess,'" Ethan said. "It meets community standards." Maria nodded, her eyes flashing. "And that perhaps Leo has sensitivities he'll grow out of." Sierra herself suggested some herbal tea. Ethan's jaw tightened. Herbal tea for a chemical burn. Right. Then came the whispers about the Millers, a young couple who'd bought into the Evergreen dream a year before him. Their dream had soured into a nightmare of escalating HOA fees and the mandatory Verdant package, which they'd had to finance. The whispers said they were facing foreclosure. The for sale sign on their lawn, a stark monument to unsustainable sustainability. The most bizarre piece of the puzzle came from Mrs. Henderson, a sweet, elderly woman who was profoundly deaf. She communicated via a tablet, and one afternoon, she typed out a message to Ethan with trembling fingers, her face a mask of confusion and betrayal. She'd been watching a recording of an HOA meeting with the closed captions on, a service the HOA proudly touted for its inclusivity. "They aren't saying what the captions say," she typed, her eyes wide. Mess. Greene talked about potential assessment increases due to supply chain issues with Verdant. The captions said, "Exploring more cost-effective local partnerships." It's different. A lot of it is different. Ethan felt a cold knot form in his stomach. This wasn't just price gouging or bureaucratic overreach anymore. This was deliberate deception, targeted at the most vulnerable. He started taking his evening walks with a new purpose. His gaze sweeping over the manicured lawns and identical solar arrays. He noticed things, like the fact that Sierra Greene's own rooftop array seemed significantly larger, a different model even, than the standard Verdant issue, or the hushed, anxious conversations that abruptly stopped when he approached. And then there was the watcher, an older man, living in one of the smaller, slightly more secluded houses at the edge of the development. Ethan had only caught glimpses, a silhouette in a window, a figure quickly retreating from a porch as he neared. The neighborhood grapevine, which even in its anxious state still functioned, called him Mr. Peterson, a retired engineer. Some said he'd worked in renewable energy a long time ago, before retreating into a quiet, almost hermit-like existence. Lately, though, Ethan had the distinct feeling Mr. Peterson was observing him, his gaze analytical, perhaps even interested. One evening, as Ethan stood staring at the perfectly uniform, suspiciously vibrant green lawn in the community park, a green that owed its existence to Verdant's pricey chemical cocktail, he knew he couldn't just blog about this. The irony was too bitter, the injustice too blatant. Evergreen Heights wasn't an eco-utopia, it was a gilded cage, and Sierra Greene held the only key, forged by Verdant Solutions. "All right, Sierra," he muttered under his breath, a rebellious glint in his eye. "You want a green revolution. Let's see how you like one that doesn't come out of a pre-approved, overpriced bag." The fight for Evergreen Heights was just beginning, and Eco-Ethan was about to go offline and get his hands dirty. The fight for Evergreen Heights had indeed begun, and Eco-Ethan, armed with a righteous fury and a surprisingly fast internet connection for a supposedly off-grid inspired community, was digging. His first target? Verdant Solutions and its saintly patron, Sierra Greene. It wasn't charity work that made Sierra's eyes sparkle when she talked about Verdant. It was something far more tangible. Days of sifting through convoluted corporate filings, shell companies, and LLCs that folded into one another like a financial Escher painting finally yielded gold. Or, more accurately, Greene, Sierra Greene, our Queen of Clean, was an indirect, but significant, shareholder in Verdant Solutions through a series of cunningly named subsidiaries. Emerald Future Holdings, indeed. More like emerald wallet linings. Well, Sierra, Ethan murmured, screen capping the evidence. Looks like your holistic living includes a very healthy ROI from the folks you're forcing down our throats. The next crack in Verdant's pristine facade came via an encrypted email. Saw your blog, used to work for Verdant. They're not what they seem, willing to talk, anonymously. The ex-employee, a nervous chemical engineer Ethan dubbed Deep Chlorophyll. I painted a grim picture over a burner phone. The solar panels, subpar efficiency, imported from halfway across the world, with a carbon footprint that would make a coal baron blush. That artisan fertilizer. Basic stuff, bulk purchased, repackaged with a fancy label and a ludicrous markup. And the eco certifications, meaningless. Deep Chlorophyll then dropped another bombshell. Ever heard of EcoTrust? Ethan had. Their gold star logo adorned every Verdant product brochure, every HOA communication about approved materials. They're the ones certifying Verdant stuff, right? Ethan asked. A bitter laugh crackled down the line. EcoTrust is Verdant, a wholly owned subsidiary, set up and funded by them to rubber stamp their own damn products. It's a closed loop of deceit. The pieces began to slot together with sickening clarity. The inflated prices, the exclusive contracts, Sierra's unwavering devotion. It was all a meticulously constructed charade. He then delved into the HOA's financials, specifically the Green Path Loan Program they'd so helpfully arranged with a specific bank for residents struggling with the Verdant upfront costs, like the Millers. The glossy pamphlets promised easy, sustainable financing. The fine print, which Ethan read with a magnifying glass and a rising sense of outrage, revealed hidden fees and an interest rate that was anything but sustainable for the borrowers. It was predatory, plain and simple, trapping people in debt for the privilege of living in Sierra's eco-fiefdom. Just as his investigation was gaining momentum, a new HOA directive landed in everyone's inbox. Subject: commitment to product integrity. It was a demand, couched in fluffy corporate speak, for all residents to sign a product and vendor confidentiality agreement. In essence, a gag order. They were forbidden from discussing the technical specifications, performance, or even their personal experiences with Verdant products with any outside parties, to protect proprietary information and maintain community harmony. It read, protect their damn racket. More like, Ethan fumed to Mrs. Henderson via text. She responded with a string of angry face emojis and a picture of her cat looking equally unimpressed. Even the pets were onto them. He also found the source of Verdant's glowing performance reports. A company called Envirometrics Analytics provided all the data on emissions savings and product efficiency. A quick search revealed Envirometrics' main office was a P.O. box, and its board of directors shared two familiar names with Verdant's executive team. The data wasn't just biased. It was almost certainly fabricated. Ethan had enough. He spent a caffeine-fueled night drafting the mother of all blog posts, laying out the financial entanglements, the sham certifications, the predatory loans, and the falsified data. He titled it, Evergreen Heights, Utopia or Ecoscam. He hit publish just before dawn. The backlash was immediate and brutal. By noon, the HOA had emailed a community alert, decrying Ethan's post as maliciously inaccurate, and an attack on the very foundations of our sustainable living. Sierra Greene herself, looking artfully distressed, appeared in a hastily produced video. It saddens me, she intoned, a single tear, probably organic and sustainably sourced, tracing a path down her cheek. That one individual, clearly resistant to our shared vision, would seek to undermine the green movement from within. This isn't just an attack on Evergreen Heights, it's an act of sabotage against our planet. They dredged up grainy security footage of him from weeks ago, arguing with a landscaper, conveniently omitting the audio where he was questioning why they were using Verdant's chemical pesticides near the children's play area. The narrative they spun was of an aggressive, disruptive outsider. That afternoon, a small commotion broke out near the community garden. A toddler, little Maya Tran, had slipped and fallen hard on the newly installed eco-safe. Permeable playground surfacing, another Verdant exclusive. The surface, it turned out, became treacherously slick when damp. Maya's mom, previously a staunch Sierra supporter, looked shaken, her faith visibly cracking as she cradled her crying child. They said it was the safest, best for the environment. Then came the notice pinned to Ethan's own door, a crisp, official-looking document. A fine, $250, his crime. Violation of Evergreen Heights horticultural standards. Planting of a non-approved species, Salvia gregii, in a designated native pollinator zone. He'd planted autumn sage, a drought-tolerant perennial beloved by hummingbirds and bees. Perfectly suited to Oregon, apparently. It wasn't on Verdant's pre-approved, overpriced list of acceptable native plants. Ethan looked at the fine, then at the salvia, its cheerful red blooms a small act of defiance in the sea of enforced conformity. A slow, dangerous smile spread across his face. "Oh, it is on," he whispered. This wasn't just about exposing a scam anymore. This was war, and Sierra Greene had just handed him another beautiful, vibrant red flag to wave. The $250 fine for unauthorized biodiversity was the last organic straw. That evening, under the dim, energy-efficient glow of Ethan's LED patio lights his own. Thank you very much. Not Verdant's overpriced, data-mining smart bulbs. A fledgling rebellion took root. He called it Green Grounded, a name that dripped with the irony he'd come to savor. Present were Maria, whose son Leo was now sporting a permanent rash from playground encounters. The Millers, whose Evergreen Heights dream had become a foreclosure nightmare staring them in the face. And, to Ethan's surprise, Mr. Peterson, the reclusive former energy engineer. Peterson, a man of few words but sharp, observant eyes, had quietly approached Ethan after the salvia incident. A schematic for a DIY soil nutrient tester tucked under his arm. Their fertilizer's junk. He'd stated flatly, high salt, low actual nutrients, more filler than an HOA budget report. They're not just selling us bad products, Ethan said, pacing his small patio. They're selling a lie, wrapped in a green ribbon, and making us pay through the nose for it. Sierra's a shareholder in Verdant. Their eco-certifier, the Eco-Trust, is Verdant. The loans are predatory, and those glowing efficiency reports, cooked. We need proof, Mark Miller said, his voice hoarse. His wife, Sarah, just nodded, her eyes hollow. Solid, irrefutable proof that will make the rest of this neighborhood wake up from Sierra's green dream. And so, Operation Compost Heap began. Mr. Peterson, with his engineering background, started analyzing samples of Verdant's products, comparing them to readily available, cheaper alternatives. Maria, surprisingly adept at navigating online county records, dug into property values and HOA fee structures, cross-referencing them with Verdant's price list. Ethan and the Millers focused on collecting invoices, meticulously photographing every charge, every vaguely worded service fee. They started a secure group chat, sharing snippets of internal HOA emails that had been accidentally forwarded or left on community printers. Old Mrs. Albright, who'd lived in the area before Evergreen Heights even broke ground, approached Ethan during one of his illicit plant inspections. Years ago, she whispered, her voice quavering, when they first proposed this eco-community. Some of us questioned the costs, the restrictions. Sierra wasn't the big influencer then, just ambitious. Her eyes darted around. We got letters, anonymous, talking about how our trash service might get interrupted, or how our property maintenance complaints might get lost. Most of us just shut up. The HOA's strong-arm tactics, it seemed, had deep roots. Then, a breakthrough. A resident named David Chen, a quiet lawyer who usually kept to himself, filed a class-action lawsuit against the HOA, citing deceptive trade practices, breach of fiduciary duty, and a list of grievances that mirrored Green Grounded's findings. The court, in a preliminary move, issued a temporary injunction. No new mandatory eco-upgrades could be enforced until further review. A small victory, but it sent a shockwave of hope and panic through Evergreen Heights. Around the same time, a new face appeared at a few of the more tense HOA meetings. A woman named Chloe Davis, a freelance writer ostensibly doing a piece on innovative American communities. She rented a small unit short-term. Chloe asked pointed questions, her notebook always open. She sought out Ethan after one particularly fiery exchange with Gary, the treasurer, over the freshly discovered surveillance capabilities of Verdant's energy optimization hubs. These things aren't just optimizing energy. Gary? Ethan had argued, holding up a printout of the hub's terms of service he'd unearthed, which detailed data collection on household occupancy patterns and appliance usage. They're optimizing surveillance. Since when does living green mean Big Brother tracks when I make toast? Chloe had listened intently. Later, she quietly passed Ethan a note. Keep digging. You're onto something bigger than you think. I'm not just writing about innovative communities. An undercover journalist? The cavalry, perhaps, had arrived in a fuel-efficient hybrid. The next piece of the puzzle fell into their laps with comical ineptitude. An HOA administrative assistant, clearly flustered by the ongoing lawsuit, accidentally uploaded Verdant's actual unredacted quarterly financial report, meant for Sierra and the board, to the public community forum instead of the approved native plant list. The file was only up for 10 minutes. But Ethan, alerted by a panicked anonymous tip, deep chlorophyll again, snagged it. The profit margins on the eco upgrades were astronomical. Community standard pricing was a euphemism for whatever we think these suckers will pay. Mr. Peterson, cross-referencing names from the leaked report, with HOA committee rosters, made another discovery. The Independent Product Review Committee, the very body that rubber-stamped every Verdant product as essential, had 3 members who were also receiving hefty consultancy fees directly from a Verdant subsidiary. Independent, my asbestos-lined shorts. Peterson grumbled. The pressure was mounting. One morning, Maria called Ethan, her voice frantic. The laptop. Ethan, the one with all our compiled evidence. The scans. Mr. Peterson's analysis. It's wiped. Everything's gone. It had been hacked. Sophisticatedly. Professionally. A cold dread settled over Ethan. This wasn't just about overzealous bureaucrats anymore. Verdant, and by extension Sierra, were playing for keeps. The smear campaign had been one thing, but data destruction, that was a different league. For a fleeting, nauseating moment, self-doubt gnawed at him. Sierra's words echoed. Saboteur of the Greene movement. What if he was tearing down something fundamentally good, just because of some rough edges? Were a few overpriced solar panels and some bossy rules really worth this level of warfare? He looked at a picture of Leo's inflamed skin, thought of the Miller's haunted faces, and the doubt receded, replaced by a harder resolve. Greene grounded regrouped, shaken but not broken. They'd made backups, though not of everything. They became more cautious. Meetings held in ever-changing locations. Communication encrypted. They were planning their next move. A coordinated presentation of their findings to the wider community, timed with Chloe's upcoming article. Then, the betrayal? It was during a late-night strategy session at Mr. Peterson's house, going over the timeline for their public reveal. Mark Miller, usually quiet and pensive, seemed agitated, checking his phone constantly. The next day, Sierra Greene preempted them. In a special HOA webcast, she calmly, almost sadly, addressed every single point they had planned to raise, twisting their evidence, discrediting their sources with information only someone in that room could have known. She announced new transparency initiatives and community feedback sessions, effectively neutering their planned bombshell. Ethan stared at the screen, the smug satisfaction on Sierra's face a physical blow. He looked at Maria, then at Peterson. Their expressions mirrored his own dawning horror. Someone in their tiny, trusted circle had leaked everything. The fight for Evergreen Heights had just become a whole lot more personal and far more dangerous. What did you think of today's story? If it made your day, drop a good in the comments. If it didn't hit the mark, just type 1. Got your own thoughts? I'd love to hear them below. And hey, don't forget to hit subscribe. It's free, and it really helps the channel grow. Thank you so much for being here. The air in Mr. Peterson's living room was thick enough to grow Verdant's overpriced mushrooms in. Sierra's webcast, a saccharine masterpiece of damage control, had left them reeling. Mark Miller, who had been so jumpy the night before, sat pale and silent, avoiding everyone's gaze. The betrayal stung worse than any fine. She knew every move we were going to make, Maria whispered, her voice trembling with fury. Every piece of evidence. Before they could fully dissect the treachery, Sierra launched her next offensive, the Green Loop Initiative, a mandatory community-wide composting system engineered by Verdant Solutions. Of course, the price tag, a mere $9 per household, a small investment, Sierra crooned in the announcement video. For a truly closed loop, zero-waste Evergreen Heights. Ethan felt a laugh, cold and humorless. Bubble up, $9,000 for a compost system. For that price, it better turn kitchen scraps into gold bullion. He spent the next 24 hours fueled by black coffee and righteous indignation, creating a detailed cost-benefit analysis. His findings, which he promptly blasted across his blog and the increasingly fractured community forum, showed that a comparable, even superior, composting system could be built by residents themselves for under $1, $800 a household. Sierra's Green Loop, more like a green gouge. His headline blared. The online skirmish was escalating. Then, an encrypted email landed in Ethan's inbox. No sender. Just a subject line. She knew. Now you do too. Attached were scanned internal Verdant memos and email chains. One, chillingly concise, was a directive from Sierra's executive account. Writ. Resident dissent. Implement Tier 3 mitigation. Ensure contractor NDAs are ironclad regarding true material labor costs. We cannot afford price transparency at this critical juncture. SEQ. G. Tier 3 mitigation. It sounded like something out of a spy thriller, not a neighborhood newsletter. The universe, it seemed, was tired of Sierra's secrets. A few days later, another email. This one from a verifiable address. Mr. Blake. My name is Dr. Aris Thorne. I am Sierra Greene's ex-husband. I have been following your blog and the recent events in Evergreen Heights with considerable recognition. I believe I have some original documents from our earlier business ventures, before she became the Sierra Greene, that might shed light on her long-standing operational methods. These might prove her? Abuse of contractual power is not a new development. Ethan's jaw practically hit his sustainably sourced bamboo floor. Sierra's ex. This was a game changer. Dr. Thorne overnighted a package of meticulously organized files. Old partnership agreements with shockingly one-sided clauses favoring Sierra. Correspondence detailing strong-arm tactics against small suppliers. Even a draft of an early eco-venture that looked suspiciously like a blueprint for Evergreen Heights, complete with strategies for maximizing community buy-in through premium branding and exclusive vendor partnerships. Armed with this new ammunition and the burning clarity of betrayal, Green Grounded knew they couldn't just chip away anymore. They needed to blow the whole rotten structure wide open. Ethan, with Chloe Davis's journalistic savvy guiding him on media outreach and Mr. Peterson's quiet gravitas lending credibility, organized a public town hall meeting at a rented community center just outside Evergreen Heights. Invitations went out to every resident, local news outlets, state representatives, and, crucially, the Oregon Consumer Protection Agency. The night of the town hall, the room buzzed with a tense energy. Sierra Greene was there, front and center, flanked by Gary the treasurer and a stern-looking lawyer. She wore a serene smile, the picture of calm leadership under duress. Ethan stepped up to the podium. The faces of Greene Grounded Maria, the Millers. Mr. Peterson arrayed behind him like a weary but determined honor guard. Welcome, he began, his voice amplified by the microphone. Steady and clear. We're here tonight because Evergreen Heights was sold to us as a dream. But for many of us, it's become a very expensive, very greenwashed nightmare. For the next hour, they laid it all out. The inflated invoices. Mr. Peterson's damning analysis of Verdant's subpar products. The eco-trust sham. The predatory loan agreements that had ensnared the Millers. Maria spoke, her voice cracking but firm, about Leo's allergies and the HOA's callous dismissal. The leaked financials showing Verdant's obscene profit margins flashed on a large screen, followed by Sierra's own directive: implement Tier 3 mitigation. Then, selected documents from Dr. Thorne, illustrating a pattern of behavior that stretched back years. As Ethan presented the final slide detailing the surveillance capabilities of the energy optimization hubs, two figures stood up from the back of the room. Mr. Blake. One said, holding up a badge, Agent Davies, Environmental Protection Agency, Oregon Division. We received an anonymous complaint some weeks ago regarding potential consumer fraud and environmental misrepresentation at Evergreen Heights. Your presentation tonight substantiates many of its claims. Next to him, Chloe Davis lowered her own microphone. Chloe Davis, investigative reporter, she announced, her voice ringing through the suddenly hushed room. My findings, corroborating much of what Greene Grounded has presented, will be published tomorrow. Sierra's smile had frozen. The lawyer beside her was whispering furiously in her ear. Then, a fragile, elderly man, whom Ethan recognized as Mr. Abernathy from down the street, slowly made his way to the public comment microphone. His voice, when he spoke, was quiet but carried the weight of unbearable sorrow. My younger brother, he lived in a place like this, down in California, eco-friendly. They called it forced upgrades, exclusive contracts, the whole shebang. He paused, his gaze distant. He poured his retirement into it. When he couldn't keep up with the fees, they pushed him out. He died a year later, broke, ashamed. The silence in the room was absolute, broken only by a stifled sob from Sarah Miller. The fallout was immediate. The next day, Chloe's article, syndicated nationally, was a bombshell. The EPA announced a formal investigation. Online forums and neighborhood social media exploded. Public opinion in the wider community, and even within Evergreen Heights, was sharply divided. Half the residents, still enamored with Sierra's carefully cultivated image of green perfection and terrified of their property values plummeting, rushed to defend her, decrying a witch hunt. The other half, their eyes finally opened, demanded immediate reform, Sierra's resignation, and the dissolution of the Verdant contract. The battle for Evergreen Heights was no longer a quiet insurgency. It was a full-blown public war, and Greene Grounded, battered but unbowed, stood squarely on the front lines. The town hall meeting wasn't just a bombshell, it was a tactical nuke. In the weeks that followed, the carefully constructed facade of Evergreen Heights crumbled like a cheap, non-organic cracker. Sierra Greene, her serene influencer mask finally shattered, along with Gary the treasurer and two other board members who'd been mainlining Verdant's Kool-Aid and kickbacks, were forced into resignation so swift they left scorch marks on the HOA's sustainably sourced letterhead. The exclusive, ironclad contract with Verdant Solutions annulled, citing gross contractual misrepresentation and predatory practices. It turned out Tier 3 mitigation didn't play well in court filings. State and federal acronyms became the new Neighborhood Watch, EPWI, FTC, even the IRS, launched comprehensive financial investigations into the HOA's books and Verdant's convoluted corporate labyrinth. It was a full-blown colonoscopy for the community's finances, and no one expected the findings to be pretty, out of the ashes. However, something genuinely green began to sprout. An independent community green committee was established, populated by residents like Mr. Peterson, Maria, who discovered a surprising passion for forensic accounting, and even one of the Millers, now cautiously optimistic. Their mandate: real audits, transparent vendor selection, and resident choice. No more single source, overpriced eco-mandates. If you wanted solar, you picked your provider. If you wanted fertilizer, you could choose between artisan alpaca poop or good old-fashioned compost from your own bin, which, incidentally, didn't cost $9,000. Ethan, to his own surprise, was invited to be a voluntary advisor. Help us build an open green policy. Ethan, Mr. Peterson had urged, not this exclusive green nonsense. Show us how to do it right. So, he did, drafting guidelines that emphasized local sourcing, genuine environmental impact, and, above all, transparency. It was a strange feeling, working with an HOA instead of against it, almost civilized. The ripples spread. A young tech-savvy resident, inspired by the whole debacle, launched a startup called Root Authentic, designing affordable, open-source eco-monitoring systems for homes and communities, a direct middle finger to Verdant's data-grabbing optimization hubs. She was already fielding calls from other HOAs tired of being greenwashed. Ethan found himself an unlikely poster boy for HOA reform. He testified before the Oregon State Legislature, Evergreen Heights serving as a stark case study in community-level greenwashing and monopolistic eco-fascism. As one headline later screamed, his story, and Evergreens, got picked up by a wildly popular podcast called Greene or Greedy, which dedicated a 3-part series to the scandal. That led to a book deal, Greene on the Outside. How an eco-utopia uncovered a national scam became a surprise bestseller, tapping into a vein of nationwide frustration with performative environmentalism and corporate exploitation. A year later, Evergreen Heights, under its new resident-led board and transparent policies, received the Outstanding HOA Reform Achievement Award from a statewide coalition for community advocacy. There was a small ceremony in the community park, the very same park whose lawn was no longer a suspicious shade of chemical green, but a more natural, if slightly patchier. Hui. Ethan stood at the back, watching the new HOA president, a sensible retired librarian named Agnes, accept the plaque. He caught sight of the small, tasteful bronze sign they'd installed near the entrance. Evergreen Heights, a truly resident-led green community, awarded for excellence in HOA reform, 2025. Just that morning, he'd read an industry news alert, Verdant Solutions, after a quiet period of restructuring and a flurry of lawsuits settled out of court, had been acquired by a massive global renewable energy conglomerate. They were rebranding. Viridian Future Systems, the press release chirped, is poised to lead the next wave of integrated sustainable living solutions. New name, new logo, same old sharks in sleeker. Recycled packaging. Ethan looked at the award plaque again, a wry, half-sarcastic smile playing on his lips. The Oregon sun glinted off its polished surface. All the battles fought, the small victories won, the genuine, positive changes they'd managed to wrestle into existence here. It felt good. It did. But the ghost of Sierra's serene, duplicitous smile, and the news of Viridian's imminent rise, cast a long shadow. Are we really winning? He muttered to himself, just loud enough for the bees buzzing in his non-verdant approved lavender to hear. Or are we just changing the color of the paint on the same old damn merry-go-round? The fight felt over, but the war, he suspected, was just getting a new logo. When does a green dream become a green scam? When eco-friendly starts feeling like extortion. Someone has to speak up. What would you do if your HOA used sustainability as a smokescreen to control and profit? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear from you. And if you believe stories like this deserve to be told, hit that subscribe button and stick around. More truths are coming.